Hello there and welcome to the Michael Calderin Show. We're so glad that you could join us today. And I'm really excited about today's guest, Dr. Trish Muehsam, who I have known for a very long time. And I'm really happy that she's returning to the show because she has been on the show before. Um, Dr. Trish, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Michael. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for being here. So let the listeners know a little bit about you, and of course, they're going to learn more about you throughout the show. Um, Dr. Trish Muehsam is a pioneer in the synthesis of science, holistic health, and contemporary spirituality. Has distinguished herself as a practitioner, educator, and research scientist, and has been an influential force in shaping the landscape of healthcare options available today. Dr. Muehsam is the founder of Transformational Medicine, a whole person approach to health and well-being, offering tools and resources for individuals and communities in person and online. She currently lives in New York City. And if you want more information or to connect with Dr. Trish, go to www.transformationalmedicine.org. That's www.transformationalmedicine.org. Um, so we're going to talk about your book as well, which I was very honored to have an opportunity to review it before its release, and have shared it with so many family and friends, and I know that they've all purchased copies, and it's been amazing. I know it was a long time coming. I know you and I have spoken about this over the years. Um, and in the introduction to Beyond Medicine, you describe a number of formative personal experiences that inspired your choice of medicine as a calling and that framed your understanding of health, illness, and even reality. So please tell us a little bit about those experiences.
Sure, sure. And thank you for that generous introduction, Michael. Thank you. Yeah, I've had quite a few experiences that forever shaped me. I write about two of them in the introduction to the book. I think the one that was most profound happened when I was in college in my early 20s, and I started having psychic or out of body experiences. Very, very intense psychic experiences. I could foresee the future. I had abilities to manipulate matter. I could know what people were thinking. It sounds very woo-woo, perhaps, to some who may be listening, but it was very, very real to me. And during this period of time, I also experienced an incredible feeling of peace, of bliss, of equanimity. It's something that I write about as an essential theme throughout the whole book. It's what absolute health is. It's an essential theme of the book, inner peace. Anyhow, to make a long story short, I was having these very heightened psychic experiences in college, and I told the wrong people about them. And I ended up getting locked up in a psych ward against my will, involuntarily, and told that I was destined to be medicated for life. I was schizo this and manic depressive that, and placed on 4 different medications to suppress those symptoms and that behavior, and that was considered to be incorrect perception and thinking on my part. So many, many, many months later, after being discharged from that hospital ward home to my parents, which at the time was very difficult. I had to leave college. There was a lot of shame around it all. Told again I was going to be on these medications for life. My mother, who was a very progressive, enlightened, wise, brave, and remarkable woman, came up to my room one day and said, "We have to get you off all of these medications. This is not okay." And she did, slowly, by slowly, little by little, she weaned me tablet by tablet, capsule by capsule, and I returned to the person that I was before that experience. So I had a formative experience, so we say an adventure, with what I call the unseen world, a reality beyond cognition and our five senses, when I had those psychic experiences. And then I had another adventure in the world of conventional psychiatry, being a patient of that world. And those two experiences forever framed how I came to understand reality and how I came to understand the limits of Western medicine in terms of mental health and well-being. I came to understand that there is indeed a reality beyond our thinking brains, beyond how we understand the world around us as three-dimensional, and how we understand time to be linear, beyond how we experience the world around us with our five senses. That was one big experience, or let's say just two experiences in one, the psychic experiences and then the hospitalization. And another experience I had that I also share in the introduction of the book was earlier on in my life, when I was in my early teens. My dad, who had been very vital and healthy at the time, had a catastrophic stroke when he was only 49 years old. And he woke up one morning and he couldn't get the words out, and the half of his body couldn't move. His left side was paralyzed. He had aphasia and hemiparesis. That means he couldn't get the words out, as I said, and he was partially paralyzed. After many months of therapy, his speech came back a little bit and his movement returned a little bit. He was basically told he was destined, like me, to be drugged for life, destined to be essentially a vegetable for life. However, he was an out-of-the-box thinker as well, and he continued for many years beyond this, over 15 years, continue on with therapy. He was a physician himself. He was taking acupuncture, doing other types of therapies. But it wasn't until sometime after that, when I was in my fourth year of medical school and I was studying acupuncture myself and working and learning from a quite brilliant yet eccentric physician scientist who had a unique approach to understanding, diagnosing, and treating disease. My father went to see him. He had an approach to health and disease diagnosis and treatment that involved Qigong, which is a Chinese medicine energy practice.
Right.
It also involved a theory that all diseases are related to infections, and he had a way to neutralize the infection using Qigong and certain biological substances, and that even a stroke in the brain was secondary to a vulnerability that an infection was present. So long story short, my father started to undergo this man's treatment, and within days, his speech completely returned to normal.
Wow.
Completely returned to normal. Now, after the stroke and for many years later, and this was 19 years later when he went to see this man whom I was studying with. But for all those years, his speech got better, but it was never normal. And my dad was originally from Germany. He was from Berlin. He spoke English like an Englishman. Long story short, he was a Holocaust survivor, a lot of trauma there. In another part of the book, I write about emotional trauma and how we can inherit it, and how I think in a lot of ways my dad's stroke was related to issues of his own trauma. But getting back to his healing experience, he could never speak the way he used to. His speech was sort of in German, like he was translating German. The German English is a different format. It's in the passive language, as we say. So he spoke English like he were a German person speaking English. But years later, as I said, when he started to take this man's treatment, his speech returned completely to normal before the stroke. He spoke the way he used to. He had mannerisms, he had sayings that I hadn't heard for 19 years.
Wow.
So that was quite remarkable. And that was another profound experience that forever changed what I had come to understand about Western medicine's diagnosis and prognoses. We were told at the time, way back when, that neurons don't regenerate. Nowadays, we know that they do, that the brain is very plastic, very malleable.
Right.
But yes,
And
that was a remarkable experience that forever changed my limiting beliefs, and any limiting beliefs that Western medicine puts on us about disease diagnosis and prognosis. And I came to understand that all diseases are absolutely theoretically curable, no
right,
matter what the diagnosis is. Whether somebody's told you have stage 4 pancreatic cancer, that is theoretically curable. Whether it's somebody's destiny to heal is another story. But I spend some time later on in the book describing some of the examples of that extraordinary reality beyond our thinking brains and our 5 senses. And I also spend another chapter of the book describing some of the extraordinary miracles that I've borne witness to, extraordinary healings beyond the bounds of Western medicine's belief system, and extraordinary phenomena beyond the bounds of how we experience time and space and reality. So those were 2 big experiences. My
and
psychic openings and my dad's stroke and healing.
let me ask you a question, Dr.
Mhm.
Trish. What type of medicine did your dad practice?
My dad was a cardiologist.
Okay. And
Mhm,
prior to this, to his stroke,
mhm.
would he have considered these alternative methods?
Yeah, I think he would have. He was an unusual man and ahead of his time as well. He was very open. After his stroke, he went for acupuncture, and he was a traditional, conventionally trained cardiologist. But he was an out of the box thinker as well. So he was open. He was open.
And I just want to kind of go back to, um, what was happening with you when you had presented with the things that you talk about in terms of having visions and
Mhm.
and uh, and things along those lines. How was that received by people that you spoke to, by physicians, by your family?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I didn't tell the whole story. I told the wrong people. I didn't understand what was going on with me. I had one professor in college who did understand, who was very engaged in kind of spiritual practices. He was a music professor, and he and his wife were very enlightened and wise and understood um, that these types of experiences was part of spiritual awakening. They considered it a spiritual awakening. And in fact, I describe it in the book as a spiritual awakening gone awry. But I told the wrong people, and that's what happened. I told the wrong people, and one of my dad's colleagues, decided that I was summarily crazy and needed to be taken to the ER and have a syringe stuck in my butt to numb my brain and my senses and take me up to the 4th floor, and keep me there for a while. So yeah, I didn't understand it. I didn't have a context for understanding it. All I knew was that I was so highly, I felt so highly alive and vital and peaceful at the same time. Everything was just was beautiful. No matter what was going on, everything was beautiful and peaceful, and there was never a problem. No matter what was going on in the world or in my life, everything was okay. It was just a tremendous sense of peace. And I naively wanted to tell people about that.
Sure.
And like I said, I didn't have the context, or I had some psychic experiences earlier on in my life as a child, but never long enough to put it together or to talk about it. A vision here that came true, or a dream here that came true, or a knowing. Yeah, so it was not widely accepted. Yeah.
And I guess that kind of segues into, one of my next questions, which, in your book, you write about the mind-body connection. And, could you explain to us how important, how impactful are our thoughts and emotions, to our overall well-being.
Yes. Well, our thoughts and our emotions are like the hard drive of the computer, and everything else in the body is like the software. Every thought we think, every emotion we feel is instantaneously impacting our physical body. In fact, there's no separation between thoughts, emotions, and the physical body. This isn't something that I was taught in medical school. Thoughts, the mind, the emotions are the realm of psychiatry, but the ancient wisdom, the ancient mystics, and even the forefathers of Western medicine said just that. So we talk about substances and medicines and all sorts of stuff we can put into our body, but it's really how we're using our minds and how we're navigating the field of feelings that is more potent than any medicine,
Right,
that can either make us well or keep us sick.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've shared, I don't remember if I shared this with you. I shared it with a few friends. Um, I had gone in for a test and procedure, and I said to the doctor, who has treated me for years, we know each other, and I said, I'm going to fight the anesthesia. And he laughed, and of course, once once they put it in your IV line, you're down, right?
Mhm.
But I actually woke up during the procedure,
Wow.
and um, I recall, being up for, just a few seconds when they came and put something else into my IV,
Mhm.
put me back out.
Mhm.
But,
Mhm.
I remember when they were wheeling me out, I had asked the nurse, if I had in fact woken up. And she said, oh, I don't know. I was on the other side of the room. Well, how would you not know if the patient woke up?
Exactly.
But I get it.
Yeah.
She wasn't going to answer that question. But I asked the doctor when he came to check on me, before I went home, and he said, "Yeah, you did."
Mhm.
And he said, I was just finishing up
Mhm.
when you did. I said, "Okay." I said, I just wanted to make sure, like, was I dreaming, or, because I knew that I had said I was going to fight the anesthesia. So I'm like,
Right.
maybe I dreamt that I
Right.
fought the
Right. Right.
anesthesia, but no. So, to me, that was just such a powerful example
Mhm.
of what the mind is capable
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
doing.
Right. Right.
Now, why would anyone want to fight the anesthesia? I don't know what came into me to
Mm.
even say it or think it,
Mhm.
but,
Mhm.
you know, nonetheless, it did. And I think that's an important piece for us, um, because, we talk about affirmations, right? And we encourage people to always have positive affirmations and
Mhm.
to really talk to themselves in a good way,
Mhm.
right? Because your mind and your body are listening to you.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, but there's a problem with affirmations. Do you want to go there? Shall I go
sure, let's
there?
go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, positive thinking is powerful, potent medicine, but we can't simply affirm what we may desire for ourselves or others, like we may do in prayer, if that's part of our practice, or we're just into thinking positively and affirming and visualizing positively. If we're harboring feelings or thoughts that run counter to those affirmations, and we may be harboring feelings or thoughts that run counter to those affirmations that we're not clearly aware of. Gee, I want to affirm my health. I want to affirm my abundance. I want to affirm my well-being. But I'm afraid, or I'm doubtful, or I'm not believing in it. Those very, very, very thought vibrations, and they are vibrations, manifest in the physical body, and they can actually manifest just the way our positive affirmations can manifest. So I'm not saying not to affirm, not to put intention out into the universe, not to pray in the ways that we may pray. But if we have thoughts, and this is going back to what we were saying moments ago, if we have thoughts or feelings that are interfering or negating or opposing what we may be desiring or what we may be affirming, they can manifest and they can interfere. And what we need to do is we need to be present with those thoughts and feelings in order to shift them. So I may want to manifest something, but if I'm doubtful, I need to be present with that doubt. I need to be present with any fear. I need to be present with any emotions that can be counter to those affirmations. And I spend a little bit of time in the book talking about just that. It's by being present in the moment. And I'm sure everybody who's listening is familiar with the term mindfulness. It's by being present in the moment with what we're experiencing that we can shift what we're experiencing. What we resist persists. By being with what is how we shift what is. So it's really about cultivating self-awareness. Yeah, I want to affirm something, but is there other stuff going on that's interfering with that? Again, returning to the power of thoughts and emotions, whether it's a physical issue, a life circumstance, something that's going on for someone else in our life. Yeah. So,
And
Yeah.
in your book, you talk about several tools, breathing, mindfulness, meditation, journaling, and also something that many people are not familiar with, which is mirror work and mind body sensing. Can you tell us more about those tools?
Yeah, sure. You just described what I've called in the book the 5 absolute health tools. And just a little bit of background, absolute health is a term that I've coined that describes simply where we need to be for whatever's going on in our life. And that place we need to be is a place of inner peace. No matter what's going on, whether it's a health issue, whether it's a life circumstance, a relationship issue, a financial challenge, where we need to be to heal that health issue is in a place of peace mentally and emotionally. Where we need to be for clarity and solutions to arise for whatever's going on in our life, we need to be in a place of peace. We can't get clear if the mind isn't calm. And we cannot heal, the body cannot heal if the mind is not calm. Healing will not happen when the mind is not calm. It's physiologically impossible. And those tools you just mentioned, those 5 tools, breathing, mindfulness and meditation, journaling, mirror work, and mind body sensing are 5 tools that I introduce to help us cultivate peace of mind in the moment. And there are 5 tools that help us cultivate just being here now with what is. We are a culture. When I say a culture, we human beings as a culture. I'm just talking about general human beings in the Western world.
Sure.
I live on the East Coast. I live in New York City. It's a city of doing. It's not a city of being. We live in a culture that is more inclined to think that doing is superior to being, and that accomplishing and success is about doing, not being. And I'm saying no to the contrary. All that we ever need in order to actually accomplish and get things done is to first stop and just pause and just be. Because when we don't do that, we are usually fueled by a notion in our mind that's usually fueled by a fear or a worry or a concern, right? So we're talking a lot about mental stuff, about head stuff, and I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm a doctor who actually helps people with physical health issues a lot of the time, although sometimes people do come to me with anxiety or other concerns of the psyche. But what I do in my work, in addition to working very much with somebody's physical body, is helping them to understand that the body will return to a state of rest and balance, which is where it needs to be for healing to happen, when we can cultivate that place of peace, when we can stop and pause and just be. So those 5 tools are for doing just that. And the last 2 that you mentioned that people may be less familiar with, mirror work and mind body sensing, again, help us to do just that. Mirror work is a tool I learned about first from a woman named Louise Hay,
Oh,
who was
sure.
the founder of, at the age of 60, believe it or not, she founded Hay House Publishing, which is now an international publishing company of repute, which publishes books on holistic health and contemporary spirituality and all things related. She, many, many years ago, earlier on in her life, was diagnosed with a terminal cancer. And she healed herself through the power of positive affirmations, as we mentioned, but also emotional healing, changing her thoughts and her feelings, as well as a number of alternative and holistic therapies that worked very much with the physical body. So she introduced me to mirror work in her very famous, I should say, iconic book called You Can Heal Your Life. And mirror work is a process where you literally use a mirror and you look at the mirror and you talk to the mirror. And you can talk to the mirror as if you're talking to yourself. It's a way to access what's going on internally that we may be having a hard time accessing. Our brains were created to avoid feeling uncomfortable feelings. We're hardwired to avoid feeling uncomfortable feelings. When we were primitive cavemen and cavewomen, we couldn't be hanging out feeling feelings when we had to protect our families, right?
Right,
Because it
right.
wasn't okay. So our brains are hardwired to do that. So in our culture nowadays, sometimes we have uncomfortable feelings or we have anxiety, but we're not able to step back and not be fueled by it. So we put that anxiety into whatever's going on in our life. Mirror work is another tool, like the other tools I mentioned, to sit and be still and pause with what's happening. And we can talk to ourselves into the mirror, or if we're having a challenge with somebody in our life, in a relationship, it's another powerful tool that we can actually dialogue with that person, looking into our eyes and talking out loud our feelings. It's a way of getting the feelings out of the body. What we resist persists again. So when we hold
Right.
things inside, they stay stuck inside and they create a state literally of dis-ease and can be a focus for disease in the body. So it's a way of cultivating presence with what we're feeling in order to shift it. And it's by being present with what we're feeling that it shifts, not by avoiding it. And then
Right.
mind body sensing is yet another tool to do just that, to be here now in the moment and be present with what is. And it's a way of literally finding thoughts and feelings in the body. Every thought and feeling is literally held in the body. And it's a way of kind of imaging and connecting to our very physical body when something's coming up for us, when a thought or emotion is arising, and dropping into the body and finding where we're finding that feeling in the body. And again, by being present with it, it shifts. We don't try to shift it, but it's by being with it that it shifts.
Right. And mirror work also very similar to another exercise I have done with many people, particularly those mourning a loss, and that is, the use of an empty chair and having to
Mm,
speak to an empty chair,
mm.
which was an exercise I learned from reading A Way to God, Sadhana, A Way to God by
Wow.
Anthony DeMello, who
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
who brought the kind of combined Christianity in Eastern form.
Yes, yes.
Very,
Yeah.
very similar technique.
Yeah.
Also works quite well, because I think mirroring is good when you're doing work on self, but then I think like the empty chair
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
also good when it's work that needs to be done
Mm-hmm.
involving another person.
Right. That's a lovely process.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
you also, in your book, you explain that healing may return to the body or a departure from it, for example, death.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by this? Is this counter to our understanding of health?
Well, it's counter to Western medicine's understanding of health. In Western medicine, we tend to herbalize illness, dying, and death. We tend to create an environment of fear around illness, dying, and death. And I'll say, just parenthetically, that fear in itself that we create around illness, dying, and death can actually aggravate illness, can make us sick and keep us sick and can keep us from getting well. But what I explain is that healing may indeed be a return to the physical body, to an improved state of physical well-being. But it may also be a departure from the body. It may be leaving the body, i.e. death. And this is a notion that, again, we're not comfortable with in conventional Western medicine, and a lot of traditional Western culture we're not comfortable with. Many other cultures find an absolutely important place for the process of leaving the body, of dying. It's part of life. It's normal and natural. It's to be embraced, to be accepted, to be overjoyed with. In fact, the rites of passage after someone leaves their body for many cultures are celebratory rather than full of mourning, full of sadness. So yeah, I do offer that healing is always, always accomplished by coming to this place I describe as inner peace or absolute health. That's where we need to be physically for the body to heal. We may need help, we may need medicines, we may need herbs, we may need supplements, we may need shifting in our lifestyles, we may need releasing a relationship, we may need all sorts of other things. But the body, mind, spirit, if you will, if you want to call it that, heals when we're in a place of peace. But that healing may also be a leaving the body. And I will say that whichever way we go, it's always a return to a place of peace, of equanimity. And I offer up in the book, gee, if we could wrap our heads around this, how might we end up being fearless in the face of illness, dying, and death? How might we be fearless in the face of illness, dying, and death if we weren't, and we could wrap our heads around that notion that death isn't horrible. I also spend a large part of the book, and I think it's part 4 of the book, if I remember correctly, talking about the notion that we don't necessarily begin simply when we're born, and we don't necessarily end simply when we die.
Right.
And that's a part of many, many cultures as well. And actually, fascinatingly to me and exciting to me, because I'm a scientist at heart, there's now a wide body of scientific research, even modern physics supports it in many ways, that suggests that consciousness does not reside in the brain, is not unique to me. And this consciousness, some aspect that makes me unique and individualized, did exist before I was born and does persist after I die. And I say to my readers, what if you could wrap your heads around that? What if you didn't end when you die? What if your mom, what if your dad, what if your wife, what if your children, whatever losses you had, what if they're still here, but just in another form, like changing the radio station on the radio dial, just another frequency.
Right.
How might that change how you feel about living, about your losses, about illness, about dying, about the death of your loved ones, about the notion of you dying? How might that change? And I offer up that, maybe it might lead you to be fearless in the face of loss, in the face of illness, dying, and death for yourself, for others. And that fearlessness in itself is powerful medicine. Fearlessness can be curative. Fearless may help us return to our body. Fearlessness may help us leave more peacefully.
Right.
So a lot of stuff we talk about, a lot of deep stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And you have a chapter entitled Miracles Are the Natural Order of Things, describing your personal experiences with healers, mystics, and others with apparently miraculous abilities. Why did you offer your readers these details, especially if a central theme in your book is that our healer lies within?
That's a great question. I offer up this chapter because I want, first of all, people to know that miracles are indeed, as you described, the natural order of things. They're not miraculous. Nature, life, reality is abundant in its ability to exist beyond how we experience the world. I experience the world with basically 5 senses, although I do have intuitive and psychic senses, as we all do. And I have a thinking brain that perceives time and space in a certain way. But in fact, reality is not according to how my thinking brain perceives this moment is before the next moment, and how my thinking brain experiences time, and how my five senses experience the world around me. And I want people to be open to the notion that miracles are the natural order of things, because if they can be open to it, then perhaps they can suspend their disbelief and be open to what may be apparent miracles in their lives, be open to healing, be open to transforming a dreadful circumstance that may feel overwhelming to them and impossible to change. So if we can open, as we said, our thoughts and our emotions affect our reality and are implicitly and explicitly and instantaneously affecting our health. If we can be open to the notion of miracles, we can experience miracles. So I do share some stories of remarkable healings, of remarkable phenomena that I actually experienced personally with a number of individuals. And I tell those stories of those individuals in that chapter.
Earlier, and not just today, but I know in the past, possibly on this show, but definitely in our discussions, I know you have said, I'm not a psychiatrist, right? And I get that disclaimer, but I'm going to challenge you on that and say that a lot of your work does deal with the mind. And it's all a part of the holistic approach, right? It's mind, body, it's spirituality. So I just want to say that you may not be a board certified psychiatrist, but I think you are a psychiatrist.
Oh, okay, well, I take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
But let me also offer a disclaimer too, or I'm not sure it's a disclaimer, but we're talking a lot about the mind and the omnipotence of the mind, and how the mind, as I'm describing, is like the hard drive.
Right.
But the physical body is very, very prescient as well. And we can't ignore the physical body. I may have somebody come to me who's got some physical symptoms. Maybe they have some neurologic issues. Maybe they have intestinal issues. Maybe they have a lot of anxiety. And yes, everything that's going on in their mind and their emotions is affecting those physical symptoms, those neurologic symptoms, those intestinal symptoms. But sometimes we need to start with the physical. Sometimes it's hard to shift your mind. Sometimes it's hard to shift all that stuff. And I have seen in many, many cases, for example, people can have an imbalance of the microbiome, for example. And I do what's called functional medicine. This is very, very physical. This is not psychiatry. I do something called functional medicine digestive analysis, where we look at everything from the top to the bottom, from the mouth to the anus, to be blunt, what's going on in terms of the intestinal system. And somebody may have a dysbiosis, an imbalance in the microbiome, that's causing their anxiety or aggravating their anxiety. Okay. So we look at that. Somebody is, well, let me go back a little bit. I talk also in my book about the 4 primary medicines. Food is medicine, lifestyle is medicine, community and relationships as medicine, and purpose is medicine. So starting with the first one, food is medicine. We may just think what we're eating is healthy food. It's, not pizza and beer for 3 meals a day. Although if somebody's drinking beer and eating pizza, I need to know that, because it's telling me what their body's asking for. We pass no judgments in terms of diet. But in terms of food as medicine, I do what's called constitutional nutrition. Each and every one of us has, my dog is about to say hello. You may see him on the screen here. And Benjamin, let's see if we can say hello. Benjamin, say hello. No, he's not. He's all blurry here. Each and every one of us has unique nutritional needs, and I do something called constitutional nutrition. So that's a very, very physical aspect to addressing the whole person health. And somebody's food may be apparently healthy, but it may be aggravating their mind-body imbalances. It may be aggravating their neurologic symptoms. It may be aggravating their intestinal symptoms. And this is a constitutional nutrition, comes from mostly Asian medicine. I've studied Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, and I draw from those systems to determine what somebody's unique nutritional needs are. We don't treat the person who has this, we don't treat the symptoms or the disease the person has. We treat the person who has those issues. So that's another element that's very physical. Something that's very physical as well, in a more abstract way, is lifestyle as medicine, how we go about our day. Am I sitting in front of a computer screen in a huge office with windows that don't open, with no cubicles, no space to myself? My mind is going, going, going. I'm never get any rest. I'm draining my body. I'm draining my adrenals. How we go about our day is as important and even often more potent than a physician's prescription. That's lifestyle as medicine. So these are very, very physical things. Am I moving my body? Am I moving my mind? Am I resting my body? Am I resting my mind? And then I mentioned the other two, community and relationships, how we engage with the world, what our unique needs are for relating to other people, how we're fed or nourished by the people in our lives.
Right.
And then purpose. Purpose is medicine. I'm just checking out, my dog here is giving me dirty looks. He says, get off already. It's time to take me to Central Park.
That's right.
You're talking too much. He's
That's
got a New
right.
York, he's got a New York accent, my dog.
Oh, excellent, excellent.
So, and the fourth one is purpose is medicine. What do we live for? What moves us? What makes our heart sing? What floats our boat? That is our vital force. And when we have something that we live for, that is a healing force. That is a force for vitality. So yes, I'm honored that you call me a psychiatrist in spirit, but I definitely work with the physical body. I don't just
Yes.
work with the mind. And in some cases, and for some people, sometimes for myself included as well, it's easier to start with the physical than start
Sure.
by dealing with your emotional mishigas, as we say.
Right, right. No,
Yeah.
but I've always had a high regard for your approach to medicine and to healing. Um, you know, I first met you when I was doing undergraduate up in New York, and the
I
course
remember that.
was
Yeah,
alternative and complementary medicine.
I remember that.
You know, and to me it was just fascinating to hear, a whole different perspective, and I'm truly honored to call you a friend and to have you available all these years.
Oh, thank
you
you.
know
Well, you've been really good at staying in touch all these years.
well, thank you, I
I'm
appreciate it.
really touched by that, Michael. And I
Thank
have
you.
been truly touched by that.
Thank you so much. And I want to mention that Dr. Patricia Muehsam is available for consultation as well. Um, she does do virtual sessions with patients. And if you want to connect with her, www.transformationalmedicine.org. Make sure you also subscribe to her email, to her newsletter, because she's constantly offering webinars and different trainings that all my friends have raved about. So definitely sign up. She's got regular trainings coming out. So you want to definitely connect. If you haven't had an opportunity to get her book, Beyond Medicine, you can get it where books are sold, Amazon and other places. Make sure you pick up a copy of her book, which is in some way a do-it-yourself guide with exercise tools and resources. So definitely a valuable book in my collection. Any closing comments from you?
Yeah, I'll offer this up that, no matter what's going on in somebody's life, whether it is a health issue or another challenging life circumstance, there is a path to freedom and ease. There is a path to freedom from suffering. There's a path to solutions and healing. And that way, that it's actually not a path, it's a way that lies within each and every one of us. And that way can be found within each and every one of us in this very moment. I will say, kind of my theme song is absolute health is simply a stop, a pause, and a breath away. We just need to simply stop and pause and be here now. And the
Excellent.
book teaches you how to do that. It may sometimes seem harder. It may sound harder than it really is. The book teaches you how to do that.
Right. Well, again, I want to thank you so much, Dr. Patricia Muehsam, for joining me on the Michael Calderin Show. It's, you're always welcome on this show.
Thank you.
I'm always signing up for your webinars and spreading the word. Folks can also connect with you on social media, follow you. I know you're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, so they can connect with you there as well. And again, definitely subscribe to her newsletter. We thank you so much for tuning into the Michael Calderin Show. If you want to listen to a previous show, you can go to our show page and listen to a previous show. And now our newest addition is that you can watch some of the shows on YouTube. So we thank you so much, and we will talk to you soon.